There's an important case that just came out of the Texas Supreme Court, which is important in its own right, but also punctures the sense of immunity and invincibility that digital platforms, high-tech companies, claim under Section 230. Now, the case itself involves sex trafficking. And the Texas Supreme Court, in its ruling, held that Facebook is not immune from lawsuits that are brought by young girls, underage girls, who have been trafficked as a consequence of trafficking operations set up on and through and with the facilitation, if not the outright cooperation, of Facebook. Now, very interestingly, Facebook fought back against the lawsuit, basically saying, Section 230, we're a publisher, we're not a publisher, we're a platform. People can do whatever they want on the platform. And the Texas Supreme Court said no. The Texas Supreme Court basically said, number one, Facebook has allowed all kinds of pimps and sex traffickers to operate on its sites, not just on Facebook itself, but also on Instagram, which is owned by Facebook. They also said that Facebook failed to warn these girls or anyone about the sex trafficking operations that take place on Facebook and all its various platforms. And the lawsuits, by the way, also allege that Facebook benefited from the sexual exploitation of trafficking. Facebook basically makes money on sex trafficking. Now, the significant thing here is that the Texas Supreme Court emphatically rejected Facebook's defense. They said, look, we're not going to address the issue of whether or not Facebook has, quote, free speech under Section 230 to allow or say whatever it wants. They said that sex trafficking is not fundamentally about speech. It is about pimps, and it is about money changing hands, and it is about underage girls being unlawfully captured and kidnapped and raped and sold. And so the fact that Facebook is facilitating this criminal operation does not give it any free speech immunity because, after all, sex trafficking is conduct, not speech. I'm now quoting from the court's decision. Holding internet platforms accountable for the words or actions of their users is one thing. Holding internet platforms accountable for their misdeeds, for their own misdeeds, is quite another thing, and this is particularly the case for human trafficking. So the court is not holding Facebook accountable for what the pimps do, but they're holding Facebook accountable for what Facebook is doing to enable the sex trafficking operation to go forward. Now, when you look at the cases that are advanced by these plaintiffs, it's genuinely very heartbreaking. You've got a young woman at 15, a mutual friend reaches out to her on Facebook. He offers her a modeling job. Pretty soon he takes nude photos of her, posts them on various platforms, and pretty soon she's being sex trafficked. Another plaintiff in 2017, an adult male user contacts her on Instagram. Pretty soon she's kidnapped, she's sex trafficked, she's advertised as they use Instagram itself to advertise her as a prostitute. She's been raped numerous times. And the girl's mother says that she reported what had happened to Facebook, but the company showed no interest whatsoever. A third girl was 14 on Instagram in 2016. A man sent her a friend request. They exchanged some messages. Pretty soon the girl was kind of groomed for sex trafficking. He brought the girl to a motel, photographed her, and allegedly raped her. So this is what these internet platforms, which, by the way, purport to be we have these content regulation guidelines. We're making sure that people don't talk about hydroxychloroquine. We make sure that there's no misinformation on Facebook. So while they put on this kind of civic responsibility pose, it's important to realize it's a pose. That is just ideological hits masquerading as civic responsibility. Meanwhile, these platforms are doing all kinds of sordid business under the table, you might say. They're aware of what's going on. They let it go on. The same kind of censoriousness and let's ban these users and deplatform those guys, that applies to conservatives, but it doesn't apply to pimps. It doesn't apply to sex traffickers. It doesn't apply to people who are not just saying things that are unpopular or run toward the Biden administration, but are doing things that are grievously against the law.